I've adjourned this meeting so that the member of the delegation of the City of Cape Town must be excused. We asked the protection services to come and do that for us because she was resisting to leave the committee room. I understand that she has done that. She unfortunately wasted a lot of our time. I must say that her conduct was very despicable. It was bad. She was interjecting when the member of the public is addressing the committee. She was commenting, speaking to her colleagues there, doing some lot of gestures. I could hear from where I'm sitting now. For instance, she was commenting on the lanterns. Is it lanterns? Lanterns that the member was showing us that she was teaching her kids to do that. She was commenting about that and many other things that were being said here. We don't allow that kind of conduct here in Parliament. If the lady can do that wherever she is working, fine with us, but not here in Parliament. We're not going to allow that. And these are some of the things that are really taking us backward. We can't allow anybody to come to Parliament and do that, because basically she was sort of trying to bully a member of the public addressing the Committee of Parliament. If she can do it here in Parliament, what about where she is deployed? Now, this kind of conduct, we are not going to allow it here. For somebody who has been invited to come to Parliament to come and do what she's doing, to have a dialogue with the chairperson and not to even recognize what she did is not supposed to be done in a committee of Parliament. So I've taken a decision that she must leave the committee room, and then she was refusing to do that. We had to call the Parliamentary Protection Services to take her out of here. Now she has done that willingly. She has left. She wasted a lot of our time, and now we can proceed. We're dealing with a very emotive issue here. We're dealing with an issue which is something that reminds some of us about our racist past. A past where people were restricted access to the beaches and to certain areas, where the majority of the people in this country never had a freedom of movement. And when we do that, we get this type of conduct. I repeat, it's a very despicable conduct by this. She's part of the delegation from the City of Cape Town. I don't know whether the delegation associate themselves with that conduct. We will get that when the delegation is addressing us immediately after this. So I'm not going to take any points. I'm going to allow the member to continue to finish a presentation, and then we're going to give an opportunity for everybody to ask questions. Proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. As I was saying, that in response to the various media statements and also the particular incident on the 23rd of December, the Mayor Dan Plato did an op-ed, and I have to say that sadly he politicized my experience by reducing my friendships, my affiliations, my relations, my experience to the group's political affiliations. And I have to say that that is unacceptable. That was an unacceptable response. Because today, even though there was an investigation, he has not contacted us. Several days after the incident, the mayor confirmed that he investigated the incident, and he was satisfied that the beachgoers had to leave because it was unsafe to be on the beach after dark, and that no particular race group was singled out, and therefore it was not a discriminatory racist action. I have to say to that, is that the City of Cape Town has an oversight function in respect of private security who is conducting a public function on public beaches. It has to manage the coastal beaches in terms of the various laws and policies which promotes access and inclusivity. It was not just about the eviction and who was evicted, but who ultimately the eviction benefits. Despite the various opinions of beachgoers on the day, the fact remains that the people were instructed to leave the beach by PPA. Numerous reasons were given, which included an alleged sexual assault. And this is in media reports. So now I have to say, even though it was the 23rd of December, when this was reported in the media, subsequently it came out that this was not an isolated incident. There is systemic discrimination and spatial injustices on the Atlantic seaboard. All of these pictures I can make available, but it's got media reports attached to this. And that was the busker that was removed. That was the Ocean View Drive. We have the Dischem incident, and then we also have incidences of PPA actually walking around on Clifton Beach. And it's all in newspapers reports. So for me, it's not just about the incident, it's about the structural and systemic racism. The incident was generally portrayed as a racially motivated act against certain groups of people. However, we were all asked to leave. The racism was embedded in the structural inequalities perpetuated by the actions of the security company upon the instruction of ratepayers, and I would say known to the City of Cape Town. Structural racism, and it's sad, but I have to say this, I don't want to give people a racism 101 theory, but it's a system in which public policies, institutional practices, cultural representations, and other norms work in various ways, reinforcing ways to perpetuate racial group inequalities, and in this instance, enforces white privilege on the Atlantic seaboard. Complaints against the PPA. The City of Cape Town received numerous complaints from various persons in respect of the conduct of PPA, separate from the December 2018 incident. This was confirmed by JP Smith on the 24th of December, as well as by SABC, who is currently investigating 3 alleged assault cases against the company. A statement by SABC also confirmed that 2 beach vendors and a restaurant employee opened an assault case. Then there was the Facebook video posted on the 24th of December, shows how the guards harassed a vendor in Camps Bay Main Road. Everyone also have seen the 20th of November social media videos of PPA Talon during the Boerka protests. Now I'm saying this because these are not isolated events. This leads me to the question on who mandated the PPA to act in this manner, even though the Security Association indicated this is not the manner security companies are supposed to act in public spaces. This is our reality, and we need to be able to address it. So my question is that what is the relationship between PPA and the City of Cape Town? Was there a contract or not? And all of these pictures are also pictures that come from the media. You can see security company, then you have the metro, and these in most of the pictures, the last picture at the end is not, and I have to say, is not from the beach. That is in terms of the Boerka protests. But I think that we need to be very careful when we privatize our security service, not privatize, but our police services. We need to be very careful when these things happen. But coming back, was there a contract or not? This was the statement that was given by Bruce Hendricks, which was the attorney or advocate for the PPA security. We will no longer be assisting the police, the Metro Police or anyone. So tomorrow they are on their own. He said the company was contracted by the residents in the area to provide private security and would still patrol for its clients, which include restaurants in the nearby Camps Bay, but they would not patrol on the beach, he said. So the response by the City of Cape Town, JP Smith and the City Safety and Security Director, Richard Bosman, and I'm glad that he's here, denied that there was any agreement. Bosman stated that the statement issued by the company in question, PPA, indicating that they were operating on the authority of the City of Cape Town, was inaccurate. JP confirmed that the PPA was appointed by the ratepayers. They were appointed by various ratepayers on the Atlantic seaboard. Sea Point Fresnay Bantry Bay Ratepayers Association to secure the area for 24 hours, the Clifton Bungalows Association, as well as the businesses in the Camps Bay area. He confirmed that the beaches are open to all members, but the city can set usage times if there is a specific threat to the public safety. So based on this statement, my question was that why were the toilets already closed by 8 p.m.? It was closed. Who closed it? And it was not done possibly by the PPA. Somebody closed the toilet because there was no toilets by 8 p.m. What was the public safety reason for closing the beach at 8 p.m. on the 23rd of December, and why did the City of Cape Town allow PPA to enforce their mandate? That's my question. Whatever the newspaper reports are saying, I'm saying, what happened? What is the relationship? The city has a 2008 policy relating to the deployment of externally appointed law enforcement, and it's currently going under review. Now, Chair, I'm saying this because these are barriers to access to our coastal cities, barriers to access to the Atlantic seaboard, to include private security operating in public spaces. This is currently under review. It must still go out in terms of public participation. But if we don't have a proper integrated coastal management plan or what is to happen in the Atlantic seaboard, I would say it is dangerous to have or to deploy private security operating in public spaces, in particularly in the Atlantic seaboard. Why? Because who does it benefit? Who pays you? Who pays you to keep the structural and the spatial planning or apartheid planning, which is so evident in the Atlantic seaboard? And there is the discussion points. All of this information can be made available. This was placed on the sub-council agenda as well as Ward 54 agenda. At the Ward 54 meeting on the 4th of October, it was recommended that the City of Cape Town consider partnering with PPA to reduce the social ills on the beachfront, such as illegal car guards and buskers. The recommendations, I would say, is consistent with the various resolutions and views taken by the ratepayers associations on the Atlantic seaboard. The decisions and actions by the ratepayers and the businesses on the Atlantic seaboard limits access to the seaboard coastal area, which contradicts the objectives of the Coastal Management Act, as well as the Provincial Coastal Access Plan, as well as the various bylaws of the municipality, as well as the coastal plans. Coastal access management and planning must provide equitable access to all and redress past inequalities, and it must empower and cater for the needs of the marginalized or the previously disadvantaged communities. It is also clear that targeted interventions must be planned with all stakeholders and communities, not just the Atlantic seaboard residents. The 2008 policy has now come under review, and the draft policies aims to regulate private security in public spaces. And I think that the Department of Environmental Affairs also need to be able to look at this particular policy and see how does it really impact on the broader coastal management plan or the National Coastal Management Plan. Just coming back, is that the National Environmental Management Integrated Coastal Management Act stipulates that access to coastal zone and assets has historically been inequitable. Restrictions to access to the coast and its resources is in conflict with the South African Constitution. So we must not keep people out. We must come here and find solutions on how we can make our Atlantic seaboard more accessible to the vast majority of our people. And not just on the 25th, 26th, 1st and 2nd of January. Section 18 of the Environmental Act requires each district and metro municipality whose area includes coastal public property within a particular time to come up with bylaws that designate coastal access in order to secure that. But the key to the planning is that there must be coastal access management and planning must provide equitable access to all and redress past inequalities. So my issue is, Chair, the city, Parliament, government need to come and tell the people of Cape Town, how are we going to make the Atlantic seaboard more accessible? Coastal access management and planning must empower and cater for the needs of the marginalized, not throw buskers out. We need to be able to see how can we incorporate that. Social and economic profiles of coastal hordes must be developed. Coastal access management planning must provide equitable and reasonable access to all. So within the coastal strategy plan of the Western Cape, we must recognize that there must be stakeholder involvement and inclusion. When decisions are made by ratepayers within the Atlantic seaboard, although they are physically living there, that beach is our national asset. That beach belongs to everybody from Guguletu to Kailicha to Mitchells Plain to Boerkaap and then back to Tamboerskloof, Vredehoek, and then around the corner to Houtbaai and Hangberg. And we need to be able to say, how do we make that inclusive? The principle of transparency must guide access management and planning. Stakeholders and the public must have reasonable opportunity to participate in that planning and decisions. And when designating coastal access land, the public participation is key in relation to that. So my question is, with regard to the ratepayers, where did you invite any of the other civics to come and speak? And how can we make the Atlantic seaboard more accessible to the people of the city? Central to this is that access restrictions is a full understanding of the various reasons that demand access to the coast. Reasons for wanting access, and this is very important, because this is the planning that I'm saying never happened. It's one thing to have the law, but it's another issue when there was a plan and it's being implemented. Reason for wanting access is swimming, diving, water sports, walking dogs, cultural, religious activities, ritual slaughtering, baptisms, collection of traditional medicines, substance fishing, collection of seafood, training exercises, law enforcement, conducting research, filming. These are all activities that needs to be managed. And it's not the rhetoric and the responses that came out of the media. And what we would have liked was, how did you respond in terms of this particular plan, which includes access for all? Once these reasons for access for the given area are fully understood, consideration can be given to any restrictions that may come. But you don't start with the restrictions. You start with the access and how that is done. So points for me to consider and recommendations. Parliament to consider the broader impact of these incidents on social cohesion and equitable access to coastal towns and beaches. Because the Atlantic seaboard is not the only one. We have coastal towns like Arniston, where we have challenges around access, where builders are being built to stop communities from accessing beaches. And we need to be able to look at how do we address this within the Western Cape. Human rights implications, impact on people's dignity, right to equality, freedom of movement, freedom of security, environmental rights, as well as access to justice. Because the challenge that we're sitting with is that if people get arrested, and this, for me, is the major problem where the city of Cape Town is concerned, and I will call it lawfare. It's lawfare because everything is about it's about legitimizing something which cannot morally be condoned possibly through the court systems. Do the tick box, do the checklist, and there is nothing at the bottom, because at the end of the day, you will come to the Atlantic seaboard, you will come to Clifton, you will come there till 8 o'clock, you will jump on a taxi, and you will go back to your home. So my question is that the impacts, there must be universal access to our beaches. People with access include mobility, vision, hearing, cognitive dimensions to functions independently with equity and dignity. Because if you look at those beaches, if you look at people with persons with disabilities, wheelchair access, etc., the elderly, persons with prams, think about it. Look at the Atlantic seaboard. See whether or not there's universal access. My biggest issue, and the question is, should we have, there should be no private police force on our beaches. And I will say no private police force. Because if we don't have the broader access, or the plan on how we're going to deal with the spatial apartheid and the spatial injustices on the Atlantic seaboard, we cannot have a relationship between a private security companies that is being contracted by ratepayers, knowledge by the city of Cape Town, because who are they benefiting at the end of the day? We need to seek alternate measures, guidance from coastal laws and policies. Clearly, the approach is militaristic and not from a human rights perspective. And who is training them? Who is training these PPA and the security guards? Because it is militaristic the way they are operating in relation to our people. So we call also for the implementation of the City of Cape Town's coastal policy, which speaks to integration and public participation processes. I don't want excuses any longer, Chair. I want my city to tell me how tomorrow I'm going to have cost-effective transport that is going to take me from the townships into Atlantic seaboard. I want him to tell me on the 26th of December there will be free transport for our people. Because that, for me, is about the inclusive city. I want to know when is there going to be houses for black people on the Atlantic seaboard, so that we don't even have to trek in and out. And when are we going to change the spatial patterns? And then, Chair, I'm calling for an independent investigation. Because clearly, Mayor Dan Plato did an investigation, interviewed one section, but 12 persons that was there, don't worry about the political affiliations, to ask them what really happened. Into the 23rd of December incident and the relationship between the City of Cape Town, private security, and the Ratepayers Association on the Atlantic seaboard, and business. Investigate their role and function. All I can say is that the private security are all over Cape Town. Beach patrol, mountain patrol, street patrol, stopping informal traders. This is our City of Cape Town, that is our reality. So if they are going to be there, if there is an agreement between the City of Cape Town and it's allowed in terms of the 2008 policy, bring us the memorandum of agreement. But also be open to the people of the City of Cape Town to say it exists. Because the challenge that I have is that even if they say that there's no written agreement, there is a relationship. And I want to know what is that relationship. Because you cannot have private security arrogantly walking on beaches in the manner that they're doing, and there is no relationship. And that, at the end of the day, stops access, and it stops integration, and it will ensure that there is no spatial integration on the Atlantic seaboard. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Samai, for your very passionate submission to this committee. We will then allow the other member of the public. She will introduce herself. Are you okay? All right. We did allow for 2. Oh, okay. Just introduce yourself and briefly just tell us your experience.
Good morning. My name is Selena Williams, and I was part of the members of public that was on the beach on the 23rd. And I did not prepare a presentation, but I just want to support Shyam's submission. On that particular day, on the 23rd of December, I was part of the group, and I attended with my daughter. She's 13 years old. And the whole interaction with the security on the beach around about 8 o'clock took me back 24 years. 24 years, not 24 years, but 29 years. 29 years ago, in 1989, August 1989, I mean, it was just 3 weeks just after I buried my sister that was killed in the Athlone bomb blast. And I went to Bloubergstrand. It was roughly about the 20th of August, and it was a UDF protest to open up apartheid beaches. We went there as community members in taxis, and we were stopped by the police on the beach, and they told us we need to go back where we come from. And we basically ran astray onto the beach area, and they started shambocking us. So that particular incident took me back to a place of trauma, because we ran into private property, and we were a group. We ran into private property where a property owner came out with a gun. So on the one side facing a barrel of a gun, and on the other side police were waiting for us with shambocks. So when the PPA security approached us, I asked him, what's the threat? You have a gun on your side, and this is a public space. We are just picnicking. And for me, I was 16 years old when this particular incident happened 9 years ago. And my daughter here is 13 years old. And we fought for freedom. So we didn't want to go back to that space where 24 years into the New South Africa, my daughter's facing it. She's 13 years old. It was a reenactment of the same incident. A security guard with a gun telling us to leave, and me facing a barrel of a gun 29 years ago. So when is this going to change? Like I say, I grew up in Bonteheuwel. We traveled by taxis. Again, Camps Bay is not accessible to our working class people. And we only go to these beaches when our people get off from work and when it's economically viable. So yes, that is all I want to submit, is the fact that these things must change, and we need to be protected as members of public, to have access to these spaces that belongs to us, the people of South Africa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam, for your submissions. We are all here, we are listening. I'm sure some of us in the room can identify with some of the experiences that are being expressed here. Please just switch off there. I'm saying some of us in the room can identify with these experiences, because these are the experiences of the majority of the people in this country who were oppressed by the previous system, that we want to get away from, that we want to build a future that is much different from the system that used to oppress all of us. So thank you very much for the two of you, members of the public. Can we get a copy? Can we get a email it to the committee secretary so that we can make copies? All right, can we then move to the City of Cape Town? Honorable Peden.
May I, with your permission, ask Ms. Samai two simple questions?
No, we will go to the questions. Let's finish the presentations. Let's get the City of Cape Town and then we'll open up. Are we ready now? Okay, we have received the copies. Let me hand over to MMC for Community Services.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just quickly step over to the other side where I was sitting to pick up my phone and
Okay.
one part of my presentation, if that's in order, Chair.
No, it's fine. Okay, I think what we will do, maybe we will have to take PPA and then the Camps Bay and Clifton Ratepayers Association. so that when we discuss, we've got all the presentations. And then later on take Mr. Stein and then Dia. Well, we always start with the department, but this time around we thought that the department must be the last to give us the presentation. Okay, MMC, so you'll take us through the presentation. Just indicate the rest of your other delegations. The lady that we asked that she must leave, just give us a name and the designation there.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Before I go into the presentation, Chair, I'd like to make perhaps 2 points, if that is in order. The first point is that in your introduction, whilst the colleague of mine had left the room, you had alluded to the fact that the security had actually removed her, which is in actual fact not the case. She had left willingly. The second point, which I think is important to note at this point, is that it's still unclear as to why you had requested her to leave and under which rule she was requested to do so. So from our side, as the delegates from the City of Cape Town, there's a lot of uncertainty as to why that recommendation was made. With regard to those who have remained for the presentation, again, it's myself, Dr. Zaid Badruddin, the member of the Mayoral Committee for Community Services and Health, and to my right we've got Mr. Richard Bosman, the Executive Director for Safety and Security. Chair, so we will go straight into the presentation.
Just give us a name and the designation.
Of who, sir?
Of the lady I asked that.
Miss Caroline Knott. She works in the Mayor's office as an advisor to the Mayor. The other lady in attendance was my Executive Support Officer, Miss Lydia Rauch, and the third gentleman was Mr. Greg Wagner. He is the Mayor's spokesperson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, I will address the concerns that you are raising. After everybody has spoken, I will also deal with the rules that, the section of the rule that I relied on to ask her to leave. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. If I may make reference to the presentation which has preceded my one, it is absolutely clear that there's a lot of pain that has come forth as a result of the happenings on the 23rd. But what is even more evident, perhaps, is the very emotive way and the very frantic, erratic way that the presentation had been shared with us. So much so that there's a lot of misinformation and misguidings that I hope to be able to clear up for the committee and members of the public who are here today with us. Because it's very important for us to be able to identify these uncertainties, even though it may not seem the case to the public next door. Also, what I'd like to note is that at no point should my conversation or my presentation be taken to be speaking on behalf of PPA, as well as the references that had been made in the previous presentation. I won't speak to the activities that they had conducted on the beach, nor any of the other activities that had been referenced off the beach and in other areas of the City of Cape Town. PPA is present and they can speak on that themselves. Today, with regard to the presentation, it's a statement that has been prepared by the Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Mayor Dan Plato, which I will read on his behalf, as well as share other comments in order to alleviate any uncertainties that may have arisen as a result of the presentation which has preceded mine. The lack of clarity around the actions of a private security company employed by local rate players, the exploitation of the situation by the ANC and their sub-bodies for political gain, and the media's insatiable appetite to sensationalize any whiff of racism for a front-page story is what has brought us here today. There is no question that with the atrocities committed under apartheid and the painful memories that many of us still carry with us, that any talk of black and colored people being forcefully removed from a beach can immediately rip up open wounds from the past. Legitimate cases of racism must always be addressed. But what happened on Sunday, the 23rd of December, was not a race-related incident. I will repeat that. what took place on the 23rd of December was not a race-related incident. And what we do further to this effect is to explain the happenings which had taken place prior to the 23rd, starting on the 16th of December and subsequent to the 23rd of December. This is why when the executive mayor found out that people of all races, including black, white, and colored, and not a particular race as was being claimed, were asked and not forcefully removed as alleged to leave the beach on the 23rd of December by a private security company due to safety concerns, he was angered, Executive Mayor was angered by the ANC's deliberate misrepresentation of the incident for political gain. Subsequent to these events, the mayor had met with security company PPA and the local ratepayers who hired PPA as a consequence of criminal activities on and around Clifton Beach in the weeks preceding the incident under discussion. He did this to listen to them and also to explain where they may have overstepped. The mayor had also walked the beaches and engaged with a number of beachgoers about their experiences. And what had become evidently clear is that on the 16th of December, antisocial behavior as well as an unruly crowd of drunk individuals had started gathering on the beach, which necessitated action from law enforcement at that stage, which had then resulted in later events which I will come to describe. On the 23rd of December, after sunset, two private security staffers began informing beachgoers that it was once again not safe to be on the beach after dark and that for their own safety it would be in their interest to leave. Again, beachgoers were informed that it was not safe for them to be on the beach as a result of an unruly gathering that had started to gather close to the entrance of the facility. What is left out is the fact that no aggression was shown and no particular race groups were singled out. However, the ANC Provincial Secretary, Mr. Faiz Jacobs, later determined that it was adequate for him to release a media statement a day later on his social media with accusations about reintroducing apartheid and ending beach apartheid. Importantly, and I want to make this clear, importantly, he had failed to concede that he had been free to stay at the beach if he chose to do so. But instead, this became an opportunity to once again bang the racist drum against Cape Town. Also, what's important to note is that nobody else had complained and no official complaints had been received beyond what has been referenced already. Mr. Chairperson, during the previous presentation, reference was made to the fact that approximately around 8 o'clock, beachgoers, patrons of the beach were required, forced, as is the words, to leave the beach, to vacate the premises. But with your permission, Chair, I'd like to share a photo, if the committee secretary wouldn't mind.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. The photo being distributed shows very clearly that at 8:30 on the night of the 23rd, the beach was still a hive of activity. For those who have the photograph in front of them, will be able to see that the lifeguard hut is still in actual fact bright with lights because they had still been stationed. So too, and it pains me to say this, because I don't like to make racial references, but two black females are walking down the concourse towards the beach to be able to access the facility. At the same time, you're able to see that there are still people of multi-races on the beach utilizing the facility whilst the chairs are being packed up. The timestamp on this photo shows 8:30 on the 23rd of December, which is clear that at no point was the beach closed at approximately 8 o'clock as had been claimed. As a result of these accusations, however, the city has reported the matter to the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, SERA, who in actual fact has the authority of oversight over private security companies and not that of the City of Cape Town. SERA, a nationally constituted body that governs the private security industry. To this effect, our law enforcement officers were called from their duties so we could gather the relevant information, taking them away from providing service to the public. Officials took the time to compile reports away from carrying out their duties in serving the people of the city. And we reported the matter so that it can be fully investigated by the appropriate structure to determine if any wrongdoing can be identified and addressed accordingly by SERA, the regulatory authority of private security companies. With the national government's year-on-year under-resourcing of the South African Police Service in the Western Cape, we have around 4,000 less police officers than we should have in the province. Many communities have chosen to turn to private security companies as a force augmenter for protection, but these organizations do not have the same powers as local and national government law enforcement authorities. This is also not a trend that is unique to the Western Cape or Cape Town, and it is seen across the country. While the safety issues affecting our communities cannot be solved by policing resources alone, there is no question that we do need more resources. And this is why, in the recent adjustment budget, the city committed to an additional 165 million rand for safety services so that we could recruit more law enforcement staff for the city of Cape Town. Social media also has sadly established itself as the go-to battleground for those seeking to misrepresent information. With around 10,000 tweets and retweets involving the hashtag Reclaim Clifton on Friday, the 28th of December 2018, less than 50 protesters showed up on Friday evening, with around the same number of ANC protesters showing up on the Saturday. Executive Mayor Dan Plato was on the beach on Friday to gather and to greet the protesters and try to engage some of them, but they had no interest in hearing anyone else's view on the matter. On that very same Friday, these protesters had slaughtered a sheep on the beach, ignoring Section 129 of the Meat Safety Act of 2000, as well as the red meat regulations. Again, it's important for me to note here that these are not bylaws of the City of Cape Town, but rather national rules which govern the City of Cape Town, which reads, "A person who slaughters animals for indigenous, religious, or cultural purposes must obtain prior written permission thereto from the local authority of the area where such a slaughtering occurs." At this stage, Executive Mayor had implored the Deputy Provincial Police Commissioners on site to intervene, but they had refused to do so. And so, as a result, we are now taking their inaction to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate as well as the Western Cape Police Ombudsman. This means, unfortunately, more paperwork. It means that our officials and law enforcement officers are taken away from their duties, which will now affect our ability to deliver a service as the City of Cape Town. Another example of the ease with which information is misrepresented on social media and then very quickly broadcast on mainstream media, and as has been seen in the presentation preceding mine, there was a photo doing the rounds of city law enforcement so-called patrolling the beach with PPA security. This photo was not taken on the 23rd of December. So, as so many claimed, as evidence of the city's official and contracted relationship as has been reported with PPA. but rather that very same picture was taken on the 16th of December when the city's law enforcement returned from an anti-poaching operation. And it was at this stage that the PPA, seeing our law enforcement came down to the beach and walked alongside them. Again, this photo was not taken on the 23rd of December, as has been alleged by the media. The media, however, were happy to attach to their articles this photo of armed security and law enforcement, suggesting that it was this group approaching beachgoers. On the day in question, there were only two private guards on duty, but it would seem that the majority of the media were not interested in these facts, with many claiming the photo as evidence in support of the ongoing misinformation being communicated. In an age when fake news is drowning out the truth and sloppy reporting is turning away the public, our media have a responsibility to get the facts right. It is an environment of misinformation that political opportunists thrive, and the media environment turns into a frenzy without fact. With elections around the corner, we are expecting to see more of this, Mr. Chairperson. This dangerous race baiting and political opportunism, which will all be at the expense of building unity within the city of Cape Town. While the last week of 2018 was a painful reminder for many of a terrible and unjust past, we believe that there are some positives to come out of this entirely avoidable and politically manipulated mess. The Western Cape race baiters have yet again gone with nothing else to the public and the media, who have both shown that they need to shape up and be better, as there was no racial profiling, despite the headlines directly claiming this. And we as the city of Cape Town need to be more responsive, and we need to ensure our representatives give our communities the right information timeously. Mr. Chairperson, the city of Cape Town has a stretch of 307 kilometers of coastline. This coastline is made up of a number of beaches, a number of resorts, a number of pools, a number of tidal pools that is open for all public to access and use at their freedom and at their own leisure. At no point has it been or will it ever be policy of the city of Cape Town to restrict access to any member of the public, regardless of race, sex, or creed, to be able to enjoy the facilities that we as the city of Cape Town make available for them to do so. And I think it's important to note at this stage as well that these public facilities are spaces where we need to be able to promote social integration, social cohesion, but beyond just that, and as has been quite clear from the presentation preceding mine, these spaces need to be used as spaces for reconciliation as well, so that we don't repeat the pains of our past. And so with that, Mr. Chair, the city of Cape Town is an inclusive city. And while our country has a deeply divided past, the city of Cape Town is doing everything in our power to build unity among our residents and to promote equality, inclusion, and respect for all. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will hand over to Executive Director, if that is in order, to take you through the operational background to the occurrences starting at the 16th of December and then ending. Okay. Are you sure? Okay. Chairperson, the Executive Director has indicated that he's satisfied with my contribution, but he is available for questions should the committee feel the need to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, can we then proceed? We're supposed to take questions, but I think maybe it's ideal that we deal with all the questions after the presentations have been made. Let's take all the presentations and then we'll deal with the questions and the debate. PPA. All right. Okay, you'll introduce yourself once again and then take us through. I believe there is a thick report that has been submitted to us with lots of annexures and so forth from the attorneys. Okay, have you prepared a separate one, or is this the bundle of documents that you are going to use?
Honourable Chair, yes, we forwarded on Friday a presentation to your office, of which we have also hard copies here if need be.
Okay.
And I will do the presentation as per
All right.
what has been forwarded to you.
Take us through the presentation.
Okay. Honourable Chairman, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Chris Diedrichs. I'm a director of PPA, also known as, or actually Professional Protection Alternatives. We're a private security company that provides services for various private individuals and corporate entities in the Cape Town area and also some other parts of the country. We thank you for the invitation according us to the opportunity to present to you our statement of facts reflecting the true course of events which transpired on the 23rd of December 2018. Allow us further the opportunity to provide a background of circumstances explaining why we were at the beach on the day of the incident. PPA is a private security company that employs plus minus 400 individuals. And if I may also just include here the ratio to employees, we have about 80% black employees, white 6% and colored 14%. The company is registered with CIRA, a private security industry regulatory authority, and duly acts in terms of the preamble regulations and provisions of the Private Security Industry Regulation Act 56 of 2001. The core function of PPA in line with Act 56 of 2001 is to act as a security service provider in order to provide adequate protection of fundamental rights to life and security of a person, as well as the right to not be deprived of property, which includes the right to social and economic development of every person. If I may give just a short background also, it is common knowledge that our beaches are at its busiest during the festive season, more specifically on the 16th of December to the 2nd of January. Along with the increased influx of beachgoers, we also experience an increase of criminal activity. Not only are beachgoers or tourists affected by this criminal activity, but more so the residents of the surrounding areas. According to residents and owners of properties on the beach around Clifton Fourth, they have been approached by numerous concerned citizens requesting them to take action to prevent the criminal activity from ensuing, as they no longer have the freedom to enjoy the beach due to constant robberies, assaults, and inappropriate sexual acts, the use and sale of drugs and alcohol abuse by not only adults but unsupervised minors, making fires on the beach, vehicle break-ins, damage to property, and other forms of criminal activity being rife in and around the area. So PPA have been appointed by numerous residents of the Clifton Fourth Beach area and surroundings to provide security and protection to their homes and the surrounding area, not to patrol the beach or remove any people or beachgoers. This is not within the scope of our mandate, and we act only within the instruction and in accordance with the law of the Republic.
Okay, just repeat that. I'm sorry. You said you have been appointed by who?
We have been appointed by numerous residents of the Clifton Fourth Beach area and surroundings to provide security and protection.
Okay.
Yes, may I proceed?
Yeah, proceed.
At this juncture, we find it prudent to inform you that we have been previously employed to service the Camps Bay area and the Llandudno Beach area, also to provide the services as aforementioned. Residents have reported a decrease in the criminal activity in those areas since we have been present in the areas. Interestingly enough, the service we provided in Camps Bay and Llandudno is the same as what we do provide in Clifton. Furthermore, our presence and execution of our duties was not problematic when we were realizing the rights of freedom to security of the citizens, residents and visitor. It was in actual fact applauded. PPA commenced duties on the 15th of December 2018 in the Clifton area, specifically Fourth Beach. Why now is our presence a problem? 9 days after we had deployed to oversee our client's safety and security in that areas, and why is this now politicized and racialized because of one specific incident? Let me further make use of this opportunity to place a question to you, if I may, as to why we were approached in the first place to assist the residents. Why do they need to hire a security company when we have law enforcement officials whose duty it is to prevent criminal activity and to protect and serve? Despite the increase of these crimes, these law enforcement entities have failed to provide the most basic service to these residents according to the residents. Residents have been robbed, their homes and privacy invaded, witnessed horrific acts of violence on the public beach area, and SABC or law enforcement arriving 40 minutes or more later or to an hour after an initial report. The inefficacy is ludicrous and most definitely not in their best interest. Residents have claimed, and I repeat, the residents have claimed that the police officials have abrogated their responsibility to those residents and believe that their safety was not a priority. Is it then not logic for them to secure an alternative method of security and protection of their homes and persons? Should the exact body responsible for this evade their duty or be slothful in their duties towards these residents? Chair, we have copies here if need be, because I'm going to refer now to pictures also, which I believe have been forwarded to your office in a PDF format also. So if need be, I can hand out. Would you prefer me?
You've got copies for all the members.
I've got seven copies here.
Okay. Is it not in the pack?
Yes, it is in packs.
Okay. You can just refer us in the
Sure.
pack. Yeah, proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. Annexure PPA 5, it is, refers to pictures of Clifton Fourth Beach area, which indicates how close PPA clients are to the beach. Residents reside close to the public area and are not completely separated from incidents that occur on the beach. So again, that will be Annexure PPA 5, which has been handed out also now. Then I will refer the next one to Annexure PPA 6, which will be here to attach the pictures of various items that has been
So
confiscated.
you say PPA 5, what does it refers to?
PPA Annexure 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's five pictures that just refer to how close the residents of Fourth Beach are actually to the beach. In other words, where their boundaries are.
Okay.
Then Annexure PPA 6.
And then what does that say?
Sorry, would you just repeat
I'm
yourself?
saying I want to get the point. What is the point about that?
I'm just trying to actually indicate that how close are our clients' properties to the beach. In other words, the people that rented us or hiring us to provide the service there. And it's a PPI 6 again. This will refer to pictures of various items that has been confiscated by PPI members, not by SABC, which includes illegal substances as well as dangerous weapons. And during this time period, from the beachgoers as well as around the area. This is an illustration just to show that the type of work that the PPA officers actually are doing there in the area.
So these items are confiscated from the beachgoers.
That's correct, Honourable Chair. So we can look there at something that it looks like to me like something from a drug-related incident, and then dangerous weapons, knives, openers, bottleneck of a beer bottle.
So what you are saying, you go to the beach and then you confiscate items like these ones.
Honorable Chair, I believe that these were items that were pointed out by beachgoers to our guys while they were on patrol there, and they then confiscated it from them. And I know that these were all handed over to law enforcement.
Okay. So basically what you are saying is that you patrol the beaches appointed by the residents there, and then you conduct this law enforcement and you confiscate this type of items.
Honorable Chair, if we do patrol on the beach side, yes, it is obviously where the perimeter of the properties are, but the main function would be also on the parking area side, because that is the entrance or the main entrance to the properties.
Okay.
If I may continue.
Yeah, continue.
After the illustrations that we've handed in, just like we all ensure we have alarm systems in our homes, keep dogs to scare off unwanted persons of our property, so too the residents of the vicinity employ the services of PPA to ensure their safety and security is paramount. And they are well within their rights to do so. And the general consensus is not just for the residents themselves, but for beachgoers and tourists in the area's safety and security. Referring to the incident.
Okay, let's look at page or annexure PPA 7. So those are your members there.
Sorry?
The PPA 7.
Honorable Chair?
That picture there on annexure PPA 7.
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Are those your members?
Honorable Chair, no, these are law enforcement officers.
Or they are not your members?
No.
Okay.
May I continue? I will get to PPA Annexure 7 a little bit further on.
Oh, okay, all right. Proceed.
So, with regards to the incident on the 16th of December of 2018, on 16 December 2018, there were various incidents of violence and unruly behavior on the beach that were reported. Earlier in the day, law enforcement requested assistance from PPA security members as they could not contain a crowd that launched an attack on them. The law enforcement officials proceeded to close the beach on that day.
So law enforcement, you mean the SAPS or the Metro
No,
Police?
the Metro Police side, law enforcement
Okay.
from municipal side, I would presume. The law enforcement officials proceeded to close the beach on that day, not PPA. Annexure PPA 2, referring back to the picture there, PPA members upon request assisted law enforcement, and this is self-evident from the picture which was circulated initially on social media, where it can clearly be seen that two PPA members are walking in a line with several law enforcement officers and Metro Police. And then again,
Okay, so let me understand. So this is the same picture that the MMC was saying was not taken on the day. It was an old picture.
that is correct, Your Honourable.
So you are
That
saying
was on
that
the-
it was on that day.
This was on the 16th of December.
Okay.
There were multiple stabbing incidents in Clifton in the weeks leading up to the 16th. During interactions with law enforcement and SABC at Camps Bay, PPA was informed of incidents, one in particular where two males were hospitalized after having a knife attack. The Camps Bay SABC should have records of those incidents. SABC also indicated a prevailing tendency of a large unruly group of young males flooding the Clifton Fourth Beach area. One resident witnessed the stabbing where one of the two minor males actually collapsed in the front of their door, and they had to contact the emergency services. Added to this are the incidents of rape which occurred on the beach. Initially, Mayoral Committee member J.P. Smith and the SAP spokesperson denied an alleged rape or attempted rape incident, but this was, however, confirmed in later reports. Also take note that an OB entry, an occurrence book entry, at SAP in Camps Bay was made by Camps Bay police about this incident, but according to the sources, the victim of the alleged rape did not want to lay charges, as she was familiar with the alleged perpetrator and was allegedly extremely intoxicated. The police also had to request urgent assistance from medics and call for an ambulance, as the perpetrator of the alleged rape incident was assaulted and attacked by the community and beachgoers at that time. Carrying on to the incident on the 23rd of December, the PPA members on duty on the day in question, on 23rd of December, were requested to assist with general safety of the public in the area by law enforcement due to the uprise in violent and dishonesty crimes during the period of 15 December up to 23rd of December, which occurred not only in the area but also on the beaches. PPA members at no stage directly or indirectly informed or instructed any beachgoer or community member that the beach is closed or closes at 8 o'clock. Professional Protection Alternatives deny that its members at any stage denied anyone right of access onto the beach on the 23rd of December 2018, and furthermore deny evicting any person or group from the beach. If I may refer back to the pictures again, Annexure PPA 1, which will be the first picture. And there are also some pictures to follow after that. On the 23rd of December 2018, the relevant PPA members in respect of the aforementioned incident, Mr. Rian Botha and Mr. Sherwin Rademeyer, they reported on duty at 1800 hours in order to facilitate the night shift as per service agreement with various clients. At 1822, is a timestamp on a picture provided under Annexure PPA 1. It shows the pictures of the beachgoers at the time on the beach. Just get this one. Also under PPA Annexure 1, picture number 3, it is a picture of Rian Botha and Sherwin Rademeyer, who were on their posts on the walk path just in front of residents' houses. They were not directly on the beach. Then the next picture that I'm referring to, which would be under PPA Annexure 1, picture number 4, it shows of, and the timestamp on that also is at 20:30:09, and that shows of pictures of beachgoers starting to vacate the beach and many still present, clearly after 8 p.m. And then I have the next picture under PPA Annexure 1, referring to a timestamp of 21:37:11, which the picture indicates that the beach was empty.
So the picture that was circulated by the city of Cape Town and these pictures you are referring to are taken from the same camera?
No, Honourable Chairman, these are from different cameras. The one that has been circulated, I believe, is the one where they refer to the PPA members walking in line with the law enforcement officers. And that was taken from a handheld camera.
Chair, thank you very much. We unfortunately don't know what picture he's referring to, so we can't comment on that. The photo that we presented earlier is a photo taken from the cameras on the lifeguard hut. So if you'd like us to provide some comment on what he's indicating, I'm happy to engage with the ED to do so.
This picture that you sent to us
Yes, that's our one.
is the same as the one that is in the bundle here.
Is the same as?
As the ones that are in the bundle is the same as this one. That's why I'm asking whether it's taken from it's the same picture. It looks like it's the same picture.
Honorable Chair, it is possible, but I'm not aware. I'm not the one who gathered the pictures and the information. So it might be, it might not be. I'm not sure.
It is the same picture. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the day in question, Officer Botha was on duty doing his patrols around the area where the robberies, etc., most often occur, and approached numerous groups of people of all races on the beach as a courtesy to inform them about incidents that occurred and to warn them to be vigilant. At no stage did he inform them to vacate the beach or that the beach closed. He did inform them that the beach had been closed before by law enforcement due to these criminal activities, which placed the lives of the citizens at risk. Upon approaching Mr. Jacobs, an office bearer of the ANC, he was met with discontent as he passed this message along. Mr. Botha attempted to clarify that he was not chasing them off the beach and he was not allowed to, but merely informing them of what happened in the past in an effort for them to exercise vigilance. In most likelihood, this approach was severely misinterpreted by the informing. Mr. Botha proceeded to move along so as not to invoke further discontent and proceeded to inform other groups of what happened before and to act vigilantly and cautiously. If PPA have chased persons off the beach, would they not have been, pardon me, if PPA have chased persons off the beach, would they not then have ensured that people leave immediately? Beachgoers only vacated a while after Mr. Botha approached them to be cautious and on their own accord. This is a clear indication that there was no intention by PPA to remove anybody from the vicinity. Referring again back to pictures, Annexure PPA 7, or Annexure, yes. An indication, Annexure PPA 7 is an indication that there were various interventions by members of the South African Police Services, as well as law enforcement and Metro Police, in order to minimize or curb crime in the area. Pictures taken by members of PPA, which clearly indicates that law enforcement officials were removing people from the beach, not PPA members. And they are under PPA 7, we have the one with the law enforcement people. Honorable Chair, the one that I'm referring to is not the one on your slide there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Referring to Annexure PPA 8, on numerous occasions, including the 16th of December, these interventions included the closing down of beaches by law enforcement. The members of PPA assisted upon request of either law enforcement and or South African Police Services with some of these operations. Pictures indicate how PPA members assisted law enforcement officials at their instance and request. And that would then be, again, as I said, Annexure PPA 8, where you can clearly see where a PPA officer is assisting law enforcement, which is clearly marked law enforcement, by helping them to take things over the rocks. Also on that Annexure PPA 8, the second picture here showing where there are people that actually look like they were living between the rocks, and PPA is involved there, but again law enforcement removing them. The next picture that I'm referring to, also under PPA 8, shows where law enforcement vehicle is parked, clearly marked, and also a PPA motorcycle, which shows that we are busy there or assisting them. The PPA members would be contacted telephonically in order to assist law enforcement during this period. there was an incident where law enforcement were overpowered by a violent group of beachgoers, and the members of PPA were once again requested to assist, as law enforcement did not have the manpower to deal with the situation adequately. The members of PPA were requested to assist when such decisions were made by members of law enforcement, and as such request falls within the ambit of lawful instruction. The members of PPA had to comply with such instructions on request by law enforcement. At no stage did any of the PPA members threaten, intimidate, or assault any person, and at no stage did any of the PPA members remove or move any persons or property directly. The relationship between PPA and the South African Police Services, or also known as SABS, and law enforcement is a matter of PPA assisting SABS and law enforcement where such assistance is requested by SABS officials or law enforcement, either telephonically or verbally. Like all other security companies, PPA works hand in hand with the South African Police Services and law enforcement members when responding to alarms, surveillance in central business districts by closed-circuit televisions, vehicle tracking recovery. This cannot be done without working with law enforcement and or South African Police Services. For example, I'm going to refer again to annexures. So, for example, communication between law enforcement, including SAPS and PPA members. So I'm referring to Annexure PPA 9. Annexure PPA 9. PPA, just like any other security company, works hand in hand with law enforcement, as they sometimes don't have the manpower. Before PPA commenced working in the Camps Bay area, they had a meeting with the station commander of Camps Bay SAPS, Captain Chandler, to establish this working relationship. And there's a copy of the email of the correspondence between PPA management and Captain Chandler. That is PPA Annexure 9. Annexure PPA 10, a meeting was also held with the station commander of Camps Bay Police Station in order to discuss security issues and to the role of PPA in the area, as well as working with the police. This is a clear indication that PPA is not acting on their own account and beyond their scope of powers. Annexure PPA 11. Law enforcement would contact PPA from their control office in order to request assistance. An incoming call on 20 December 2018 from a number 021 434 2383, which is the Law Enforcement Control Office. This was an incoming call for the duration of 1 minute. Annexure PPA 12. Annexure PPA 12, again on the 20th of December 2018, an incoming call from Law Enforcement Officer William Boonzaier for 57 seconds to a PPA member requesting assistance. Annexure PPA 13. Annexure PPA 13, on the 20th of December 2018, Constable Yolwa contacted a PPA member from his cell phone with cell number 082-302-0928, an incoming call at 0132 for 28 seconds, also requesting assistance at number 45 Geneva Street, Camps Bay. Annexure PPA 14. Annexure PPA 14, on the 24th of December 2018, Constable Lekay from Camps Bay SAPS contacted a PPA member from his mobile phone with cell number 072-271-9949 at 1857. These are merely a few instances highlighted where law enforcement and to other SAPS has requested the assistance of PPA. If I may further, Honourable Chair, just as a conclusion, Mr. Botha is a coloured male who acted within the course and scope of his mandate whilst conducting his duties. PPA's job is to ensure safety and security of its employers, contractors, and to assist in the prevention of crime, of course within the scope of their mandate and within the limits of our law. The actions of PPA on 23rd of December 2018 were not unlawful, not derogatory toward any political affiliation or race group. In actual fact, they should be applauded to going above and beyond to help our citizens. In conclusion, this is a clear evidence that PPA does not operate unlawfully or outside the scope of powers and only acted in order to assist SAPS and law enforcement upon their request. PPA acted within the boundaries of the law as well as the Constitution. Numerous people were approached by PPA on the beach of all colors and races on the day in question. It would be illogical to claim that this is a racial issue. We would like to emphasize on how highly unfortunate it is that this situation has escalated to this major political situation due to a misinterpretation of the events. We do not work for a specific political party. We work for the people of South Africa and deliver a service to serve and protect. And this is not political in the least. It is furthermore unfortunate that law enforcement won't step up and acknowledge their actions in respect of their request for assistance from PPA. I trust that our explanation hit some clearance regarding the events in question, and I thank you for the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Can we move to the next one? We will still come to questions. Can we get Mr. Chris Willemse?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and to the committee. We don't have a presentation to make. We'd like to make a short statement. I'm Ms. Di Boynton, of the chair of the Clifton Bungalow Association, is sitting on my left, and Mr. Bernard Schaefer, who is the chair of the Community Police Forum, on my right. I would like to make a very short statement, and then maybe with your indulgence, Chair, Mr. Schaefer could add a little bit of more meat, because it is effectively a security matter. What I'd like to present to this committee is that the Camspan Clifton Ratepayers Association is committed to beaches being open to all. We believe completely in the fact that all citizens of Cape Town should have access to the beaches, on the proviso that the social contract between the people of Cape Town and its visitors, tourists, are protected by the city, law enforcement and SAPS, and they are entitled to a safe environment. This might be the trigger as to why we're sitting here today. I further want to comment that although I have tremendous empathy with Ms. Samai and Ms. Williams about incidents that invoke things of the past that are probably very unpalatable to them, and I empathize totally. But the Cansbay and Clifton Ratepayers Association has no contract or association with the PPA. So I cannot comment from a ratepayer point of view, the ratepayer organization's point of view. It is our understanding that the contract with PPA is of a private nature with certain individuals. So it's certainly not Cansbay and Clifton Ratepayer Association, and possibly Ms. Boynton can confirm that that is neither the case with the Clifton Bungalow Owners Association. I just want to make that point clear.
All right. So they are not appointed by you?
Not at all.
It's by individual property owners there?
That is correct. We have no contract and no association with them. It's a neutral statement of fact.
Okay.
Chair, if you could allow Ms. Boynton just to confirm that from the Clifton Bungalows, because they are obviously, it's the remit of our mandates as civic-based organizations. We are Camsbay and they are Clifton, so I don't want to be speaking for the Clifton Bungalow Association.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam. Just switch it on.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to confirm that the Clifton Bungalow Owners Association has no contract or never has had any contract with any security company, including PPA.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good day, Honourable Chair, and to the committee. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Bernard Schaefer, and I am the chairperson of the Camps Bay Community Police Forum. I just want to say from the outset as well that my comments today are going to be based on fact and on policing alone, and not on the emotive context of the incident concerned, nor can I speak to anything to do with PPA or their mandate, as they also were not contracted through the CPF, nor did the CPF have any conduct in the planning or execution of their mandate. I think what is very important is that we have seen a slow decline, and I think this is not going to be a surprise to many, but we've seen a slow decline in policing and the capability of policing, not just in Camps Bay, but in all the police stations within our cluster and even beyond our cluster in the Western Cape. And I speak now specifically of SAPS, but besides their almost collapse in our shift capability in Camps Bay specifically, which I can obviously speak directly to, there's also been a decline in sparse resource availability from the city in terms of law enforcement, metro and traffic. And just to make sure that we all understand, the term law enforcement is not meant in a general term. Law enforcement refers to a specific policing unit within the city of Cape Town that is tasked with bylaw enforcement, and they overtook what was years ago called the beach constables. There's now law enforcement. So law enforcement has a very specific role to play, Metro Police has a specific role to play, traffic services have as well, and we have virtually zero metro or traffic services in Camps Bay, and we have a very small contingent of law enforcement personnel, and whilst they try their best, they are definitely too thin on the ground in order to properly police the beaches, not just for community's sake, but for every single visitor, local and foreign, that deserves to have a safe space to enjoy on our public facilities. Also, the hours of law enforcement are designed around peak periods and around budget. So there's a reason why toilets are closed at a certain time, why deck chairs are packed away, why law enforcement vacate the beach at a certain time, Honourable Chair, because that is their normal hours of service, and sometimes those hours can be 4 o'clock, sometimes they can be 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or even on extreme days up to 10 o'clock when they are paid overtime or when it is deemed to be a high-risk day. Unfortunately, the city does not have the budget to afford us law enforcement around the clock. And this is also the reason why most facilities after dark are not deemed to be safe facilities for the community or the public at large to use. And this is not to be done in any way to dissuade somebody from using it, but rather for their own safety. And be that a park or be it a beach or any other public facility, in fact, around the world, it is common practice for most facilities to be closed and illegal to access after dark for their own community safety's sake. Unfortunately, what has happened with the general decline in police capability as well as the general increase in criminal activity that seems to coincide, and it's not probably not a surprise that those two happen at the same time, because criminals tend to want to go to places where they can see that they are left to their own devices and where there is a lack of law enforcement or policing capability. On numerous occasions, the CPF, Camps Bay CPF, were notified about unruly, unlawful, dangerous activity taking place at specifically Clifton Beach, which is the only beach, by the way, along the entire Atlantic seaboard that is in question here, or that was part of this unfortunate incident. And those incidents took the form of various either gang members deciding to meet after hours to settle their differences. Sometimes it was innocent youth that had gone partying somewhere and decided Clifton Beach was a great place to come and have an after party at 1 in the morning. Or it was just general revelers that were driving through, passing through the area. The reason why they congregate on Clifton Beach is that it is a wind-protected beach where Camps Bay is known in summer seasonal period for horrific southeasters, and it's the one beach that you can go to most of the time knowing that you are not going to be blown away. Unfortunately, for this reason, Clifton became the beach of choice for people to use and abuse after hours. This led to a lot of unruly behavior, fighting, breaking bottles, loud swearing and screaming.
Well, I thought you were going to make a brief statement.
Sorry,
Now
sorry.
you are giving us a presentation and we don't have a copy.
Okay, I'm trying. I've made notes as I've gone along today, listening to the other speakers, and I'm trying to give some context
I'm just
as to
worried
what
that you
possibly led to us have a balanced context as to what led up to the
Yes,
incident
yes,
at Clifton.
I'm saying I'm just worried that you are reading through something and we don't have copies of that. And
I fully understand, Honourable Chair. These are just handwritten notes that I've made since I've been sitting in the forum today.
okay, but just please summarize because we don't have that submission.
Fair enough. I'm going to try and summarize as fast as I can. To cut to the chase, where there is a vacuum of services available and where there is a historical list of incidents occurring, and one must also bear in mind that these incidents and crimes that were perpetrated after hours were not perpetrated against members of the community or even residents that resided there, but these were perpetrated against the revelers themselves that were attending the beach. So people got intoxicated and fought, somebody got hurt or stabbed, or there was an attempted rape, and we obviously have evidence of these incidents. So when policing is required after hours, it is for the very members of the public that are enjoying those spaces, albeit that they're abusing the space, but they too deserve to be safe and to have policing when required or called upon to do so. Eventually, this led to community members deciding that they, for their own safety, having come out in the mornings to broken glass, smashed car windows, damaged property, etc. And one must also remember the public that have every right to attend that beach from all walks of life, from all areas within Cape Town. When they attend with their children, the very decent members of the public that were enjoying the beach the night that they were asked for their own safety to vacate the beach, or to suggest that they for their own safety should vacate, those same members returning to the beach the next morning will find broken glass, drug paraphernalia, bloodied instruments that could actually intoxicate or inject into their children germs and other dangerous bacteria and pathogens, as well as they will find other antisocial devices left on that beach, which is not really the way that they would like to enjoy that facility when attending that open beach that is open to all to be safe and enjoy. So sadly, to summarize, from the CPF side, we are a non-political organization, as should all policing entities be. We are only interested in one thing, and that is safety and security, law and order, and the peaceful and safe ability for all members of the community and public to enjoy all the spaces within our police precinct area. And so, just as we saw today in this very room, where the law had to be upheld, an individual was asked to leave, that individual could choose to make it an issue. That individual was not asked to leave this room because of skin color or race. It was simply enforcement of law, whether rightly or wrongly so. I'm not going to comment on that. It is that rule of law and law and order is paramount in everything we do in life. We cannot have beaches without law and order. We cannot have public open space without safety and law and order and the rule of law being applied. And anybody that finds it personally aggrieved because they do not wish to conduct themselves within the parameters of what is seen to be a safe law and order parameter is then choosing to do so on a personal level rather than on a pragmatic or practical level in terms of what is in the interest of the general public that deserve the right to enjoy that same space. And so we are saddened that this matter has turned into a political matter, because that in turn causes unrest amongst community members. It rakes up old racial issues that unfortunately seem to be very alive and well in the minds of a few people that choose to perpetuate racism. And it also causes public members, instead of being peacefully and harmoniously enjoying public space together, have now raked up wounds that have long been laid to rest in a community that has historically always been extremely democratic and has fought against apartheid. One of the biggest community groups that fought alongside activists against apartheid was the liberal Atlantic Seaboard. And it saddens us to see our very same area now used as a political scapegoat to further the aims of a few people that want to turn it into a race riot rather than for the reasons it was actually intended or in the way it actually played out in practical reality. And so in the interest of regaining peacefulness in our area, we would urge everybody to try and start putting the politics aside and for us to work together for a truly democratic rule of peaceful area that abides by rule of law for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was okay. Let's just accept it, but you were not really scheduled to address us. We thought that the Ratepayers Association, both the Clifton and the Clifton Bungalow, had a role to play in this matter. That's why they were invited. Now, the long submission by the CPF, it's something that we did not expect, but we do welcome it. Although we could have preferred that it should be in writing. I just need to find out, why do you say this is politicized?
Honourable Chair, just to answer your first question, I'm very happy to transcribe this and type it up and send it to your portfolio committee, which with the greatest of respect, I'd love to do that. There's no problem. I'll do it with pleasure if you so need it. The reason why I say politicized is that all the press, all the media, the social media, the animosity that arose as a result of the incident of the actions of PPA, and again, I'm not going to comment on what their mandate was or whether they acted in or outside of their mandate. I think that's for others to come to the conclusion of. But the end result was that this has become a political issue. And what we then witnessed as a CPF was the further breaking of laws on the beach in regards to the slaughtering of animals, in regards to the activity by some people, the animosity that rose up. None of this is in the normal direction of having peaceful community and environment, which we all strive to have across the entire country, not just in Camps Bay. Okay. So it creates nothing but discourse, and unfortunately it saddened us to see that this matter was taken in a political light rather than in a law and order and safety light. Because all the reports that we got back from our own private inquiries that we did as a CPF was that everybody on the beach on that particular night was advised to leave for their own safety, because after dark, certain individuals, dangerous individuals sometimes, were frequenting the beach, and it wasn't safe for children and for families that were enjoying the beach for the reasons they were meant to be enjoyed.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's get the SAPS, and then after which we'll discuss from there, we get the department. Dia is always on the hot seat, so today we are relieving you that pressure of having to account. So we will get the presentation of Dia as the last presentation. Can you please just make way for the SAPS members? You can come sit this side. Okay, a copy of the presentation by SABS has been distributed. They've just written Mr. K. Stein, and I'm aware that in the South African Police Services, you do work on the basis of ranks, the general, the lieutenant. So I was worried why they just put Mr. K. Stein, but I'm sure that... Okay. Okay, let me hand over to the Provincial Commissioner, who will then take us through.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. I must once again introduce General Berger, who is the Deputy for Management Interventions. He is going to be doing the presentation. After he has done the presentation, I'll bring in General Vieri to comment on the issues that are related to investigation of cases, which has been referred to by some of the role players that are present, and also General Mangle at the end, the last one on my extreme left, will be commenting on issues that are related to deployments during the days in question. But the presentation itself will cover the purpose of this presentation, what we want to enlighten this committee about, also the background, the festive season visits by our principals, and also it will go into the situation and then the progress report, and then General Vieri will come in. I will just, before we start, I just want to correct an issue which I do feel that it needs to be corrected. A comment that is being made that Western Cape is about 4,000 members short. That cannot be correct. In terms of the records that we are keeping, we are just about 1,326 members short currently in this province in terms of the human resource guidelines that are being followed in the allocation of the resources. But even that shortage of 1,326 doesn't include the other additional interventions like Operation Thunder, National Intervention, and the Special Task Force that are based in this province. I just wanted to correct that one. But maybe some of the questions can come up at a later stage. Maybe for now I must just allow the presentation to be given. General Pega.
Okay, General.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and also thank you for the opportunity to make the presentation here. Honorable Chairperson, I'm going through the presentation or the few slides briefly: the purpose, background, festive season, the visit, the situation, and the progress report will be the slides that you will see on the presentation. The purpose of this presentation, Honorable Chair, is to inform the committee on what happened during the period starting on the 23rd of December and thereafter. On Sunday, the 23rd of December, Honorable Chair, around about 2000 hours, there was beachgoers on the beach, and we have today heard from two of the people that were there on what happened. We also heard from representatives of the company that was allegedly involved, PPA Security. And as police, Honorable Chair, we have no reason to differ from the versions as given by the people who were there. We have no evidence that it didn't happen like that. The security guards claimed, apparently according to media reports, to be acting on the authority of the City of Cape Town. We cannot comment on that, Honorable Chair, but what we can say, Honorable Chair, is in terms of the law, people like security guards have the right to protect the property of the people who employ them, meaning their actions is limited to the space or the property which they are protecting. If they act in assistance of any law enforcement entity, they should do so on the specific request and in the presence of such law enforcement agency. So while I cannot deny that the police, for example, might have called on them for assistance, it will most probably be specific to a specific incident related to a specific address and property. The law don't allow security people to execute any functions on public property and in public streets unless it is a very serious offense, and it's limited to very serious offenses. I'm referring here to where they see that the safety of a person is impacted on and the person can be seriously injured. They can intervene only to protect such citizens. But they don't have the right, for example, to enforce bylaws and those type of things on private beaches. Then the allegations was that there was the security company or the city would lay a complaint. I think, Chairperson, I will later during the presentation allow General Vieri to comment briefly on the investigations, and then he will most probably also refer to the docket that was opened by the City of Cape Town regarding this incident. Then, Honorable Chair, I don't need to refer again to, and the people from the community have expressed themselves already about their feelings and how they felt about what happened that night on the beach. Honorable Chair, then the issue about sexual offences and crime happening. There was a referral to the fact, and I must clearly indicate, the police, South African Police Service, have no record of any reported, officially reported rape that happened in Camps Bay for the month of December and even not for November. There was an incident that happened between a family that involved the family members, and they reported, although they reported to the police station, they opted not to open any docket. I further want, Honorable Chair, to emphasize the fact that that incident, which was in a close group, same family, could in no way be interpreted to be a risk to the safety of any other people, and should never have become a reason to prevent other people from going to the beach. Because when you have a group of people in a family and something happened in the family there on the beach, that don't mean that that incident now endanger the safety of other beachgoers that would go on even another night to the beach. And I think that should be clear to us all, that we should stop using an incident and trying to use a specific incident that was limited to a specific family to explain why people were warned. And then, Honorable Chair, I think the very clear thing that we should also remember is that when you warn people, you just inform them and you don't request them to do anything. You just inform them about dangers. Honorable Chair, then I go to the next incident happened on that deal with the incident of the 23rd and what was said on the about the incident on the 23rd. On the 28th, Honorable Chair, I was there on the beach myself that evening, around about 6 o'clock to just past 7, because the Deputy Minister of Police also visited the beach at the same time. But on our arrival, we found the Mayor of the City of Cape Town, Mr. Plato, already on the beach, and I have heard here today in an earlier presentation that the City of Cape Town apparently laid complaints with the IPID, in which they will request that the Deputy Provincial Commissioners present on the beach will be investigated. I just want to say, Honorable Chair, I was one of the Deputy Provincial Commissioners present there. We informed, let me first say, the people, a group of people, one person from a group of people that were there informed us that they were going to slaughter a sheep, and they claim that they would execute their constitutional rights in terms of their beliefs and other rights that they have in terms of the Constitution. And thereafter we were approached by the Mayor with the request or to ask whether we're going to stop the slaughtering. We explained to the Mayor that we're not going to do so, that we were not even certain about which legislation prohibit at the time such slaughtering. The mayor then indicate in consultation with apparently a city employee that there was a bylaw which we now subsequently determined no such bylaw exists in the city of Cape Town, and that he then also asked whether we would support the law enforcement if he asked them to take action to prevent the slaughtering. I personally informed the mayor that because of the fact that the group claimed that they were going to execute this ritual that were part of their culture, traditions, and beliefs, and because of the risk that we were running and the mood from the group there, we will not be able to present or to support them in stopping people from doing these or performing these rituals, and that if they were of the opinion that any offense were committed, they could approach a police official at the nearest police station or any police station and report such offense. And because of that, we didn't take any action on the night of the 28th there. We, however, also never, and I must clearly emphasize this, Honorable Chair, never prevent any person from enforcing any alleged bylaw, or we didn't interfere in any way with the operations of any law enforcement official of the city of Cape Town there on the beach. Chairperson, yeah, that deal with the issue of the 23rd, and then on the first, and here I must apologize, Honorable Chair, the date on the slide is incorrect. It was the 1st of January 2019. The Minister of Police also visited the Clifton Beach, and then, Honorable Chair, the next bullet, the anti-gang unit confiscated firearms. I must just clearly indicate this happened on the 28th of December, already just before, in the afternoon before our visit to the 4th Beach in Clifton. And then, Honorable Chair, since then, we didn't have any other negative incidents that were a major threat to the safety of beachgoers in the Clifton area. Thank you. Honorable Chair, I will just, with your permission, hand over then to General Vieri to comment maybe on the specific dockets that were opened that is related to the incidents at the beach.
Okay, thank you, General.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Generals. I will be speaking as a detective, and I will be speaking strictly in terms of what that process allows me within the limits of the reality that there are still ongoing investigations into this matter. So excuse me, Chairperson, if I'm a bit summative about some of the issues. But in terms of case dockets that we have related to the incident, our case dockets start with an incident on the 29th of November at 1400 hours, Camps Bay Cas 91 of 11/2018, where a vendor of the beach umbrellas who vends that beach umbrellas that you find on the thing reported to us an assault case involving a member of the PPA on his person. We have charged the PPA persons responsible.
On what date?
That was on the 29th of November at 1400 hours in the afternoon. We have charged the perpetrators. They were linked to PPA companies, to the PPA. The second case that we have is one on the 3rd of December. It's Camps Bay Cas 16 of 12/2018. And in that particular, the victim was also a vendor of umbrellas on the beach in that particular, and that incident occurred at 1900 hours on the 3rd. The next particular case I will be dealing with is related to the events of the 23rd. We have a particular case, Camps Bay Cas 92 of 12/2018, in which the PPA is accused of forcefully removing and intimidating, allegedly, beachgoers on that particular date and the time.
That's the 23rd.
The 23rd, yes.
Okay.
Of December. So we have that particular case. We have also a case that involves some of the facts discussed here about who hired who and all those things. Cape Town Central Cas 1549 of 2/2018 fraud. The city of Cape Town is the complainant against the PPA in that matter for misrepresenting that they acted on behalf of the PPA. Just in terms of that particular matter, I was directly involved in the consultations because I was duty officer during the period over the festive season in that area. So I did have a meeting with Mr. Richard Bosman to seek clarity about some of the issues about who hired who and all those kind of things. He did submit me with a series of emails, which I have in my possession, where he clearly indicates that to a representative from the PPA that there's no contract between them or mandate between them and the PPA. That was just for the purposes of our investigation to clarify that as part of the process.
Who's Richard?
He was part of the city delegation here.
Oh, okay.
We had a meeting consequent to the incident, and he provided
the
me...
director.
Yes, director, yeah.
Okay.
It was central to this case to determine if there was a contract that bound each other in order to investigate the complaint correctly. Then we have a case, Camps Bay Cas 101 of 12/2018, related to the incident of alleged slaughtering. Now, let me clarify there first. Like General Burger, I was also present there that day. I was also part of the advice given to law enforcement when asked what they should do besides the legal issues that were explained there. I did indicate to them and point out to them, if you look at the beach itself, the short distance between the quite steep stairs up and the actual watermark and the rocks on either sides encountering it, children and old people who are playing there at the moment, whatever action they would seek to undertake should take into account that it does not escalate the risk beyond to the safety of ordinary people who are down there. So that was a very clear statement I made there, and that was an operational one that evaluated, despite the fact that there was no bylaw that could be presented. And the situation itself was not one where there was a protest. It was not a public disorder situation which would require a certain type of deployment from us in the South African police. It was a ritual slaughter of an animal. Now, in terms of the particular cases, there has been various charges attached here. One is particular to the Animal Cruelty Act, and that has to do with causing suffering to an animal when you do slaughter that. There has not been evidence so far presented of that in this case. I want to emphasize why I say this. Slaughtering is not an act of cruelty in our law. That's why we have a meat safety
It's not
act.
an act of?
Slaughtering an animal is not an act of cruelty. We have a
an act of cruelty.
We have a meat safety act that, particularly from sections 74 right to 75, tells you how you should slaughter humanely, in a sense. How long the animal must bleed, and the sheep must bleed for 6 minutes before you cut the sheep up. It gives you how it must be stunned, what type of, in our traditional culture, we give the sheep mafutas. In the abattoir, they do it, stun the animal differently. But all those conditions must be met. And from what I have in evidence, what we had in evidence, we did not see any signs of suffering that would violate those conditions of the Act with the slaughtering process. So that's what we firstly want to say. There was another particular charge added there in relation to the Meat Safety Act, and this was in relation to the regulations 129. Now, regulation 129 of our Meat Safety Act needs to be read with Article 7, Section 7 of the Meat Safety Act. Now, Section 7 talks about the prohibition of slaughter of animals at places other than abattoirs and exemptions. Now, the first few sections deals with what must happen at an abattoir, you know, and no person may slaughter an animal at a place other than an abattoir, permit the slaughter of an animal at a place under his or her control unless the place is an abattoir, sell or provide meat for human and animal consumption unless it has been slaughtered at an abattoir. However, subsection 2 states clearly, subsection 1, the one I read now before, does not apply to slaughter for own consumption or for cultural or religious purposes. That is the now that needs to be read with section 129, which speaks specifically to the fact that the local authority must apply for permission. But where the whole act is silent on, is it an offense if you don't apply for permission? All the penalties described in the first section of the act do not speak to this particular matter. Therefore, in terms of whatever evidence we gathered in this point in time, we could not find something, conduct on the side of our members who were there that would violate any prohibition in this particular, any offense in this thing that is not even described as one in the Act. That was the one, the section in terms of the particular Act. Added in this particular case docket are charges related to alleged defeating the ends of justice, and that would involve the officers present, including the three generals who were there, myself, General Mangi, and General Thing. Well, that goes without saying in relation to the previous thing. You must defeat something in law, something that is prohibited and fail to act in that particular situation. And the challenge is, of course, understandable if no such things exist.
IPID case. I'm saying that's IP
That's
case.
the IP.
Okay.
No, that is our own investigation also, because there's a complainant in our investigation.
Okay.
Act 101, our complainant is I won't go into the names, is a civilian person, an ex-member of the SABC, and then it also includes statements by the inspector from the SPCA, who arrived after the scene and therefore cannot describe the cruelty that was done to the animal. The other statements include a law enforcement personnel who also do not clearly describe whether the animal was slaughtered in an inhumane way, contrary to the prescription of the Meat Safety Act in terms of the relevant sections. Therefore, there's no evidence. So, in terms of our own observations who were there, we also found those inhumane form of particular slaughtering in that particular case. So that is where we are at the moment with a particular matter. Okay. We have been assisted by the city in terms of statements from their side, which were quite cooperative, which support these versions that we put forward here on those particular cases. That in a nutshell. The last thing I want to deal with is this alleged rape. I want to affirm what my colleague has said. I have personally gone through all the occurrence books. There is an incident, as he described, but what is very significant about this incident is that the community took control there they stopped that thing from happening. And they took the perpetrator as lawful abiding persons to the police station. From Forthbeat they walked up there, and unfortunately, because it was an internal matter between people who know each other, they decided not to take the matter further and resolve it in a different way. That is what the facts state in relation to. I've checked the occurrence books further back, because there was a disturbing scenario spread of an anarchic behavior on the part of people that seemed to be quite emotive, and I've tried to compare it with what is actually reported. I could not find any support for such a kind of representation as it was by some people and in the media and at that point in time. Chairperson, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. General.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to confirm that in terms of the festive season planning, we had a plan in terms of integrated planning with SABS, Metro, law enforcement, and traffic. We work together normally. We do the activities such as daily foot patrols on the beaches. We have also given Cape Town cluster 50 new members that were released from the colleges for purposes of beach patrols and also for purposes of patrolling the malls. We have also deployment in the cluster under General Jordan, who are to oversee the cluster to ensure that there's proper policing in that area. Now, after this incident, in terms of what happened, as it was reported, we began to have dedicated deployments in Clifton in particular. From SAPS now, we deployed in that period from the 24th up until the 1st, 127 members, permanent members, on a day-by-day basis. We also deployed the AGU to ensure that they were also doing investigations, as General Viri has given us feedback. We also deployed the POPs. We have got sufficient members of POPs in the province. Cape Town, we have got what we call Cape Town POPs as well, and POPs Reserve, which is sufficient. But we don't deploy those people to make an overkill in a place like a beach. You deploy them provided there's a crowd management situation that need them to be there at that particular time for that objective. We even caution ourselves as generals, the three of us that are here, that we don't need now to be deploying POPs to be seen to be part of the chasing of the people away from the beach, because we didn't approve of that. But we said they will also be on standby there, so if it continues that people are chased away, we shall intervene and stop it, because we can't be approving any chasing of the people that are coming to enjoy themselves on the beaches. So that is what I just wanted to emphasize. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Provincial Commissioner, any last words? Are you done?
Yes, we're done. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. You have been very helpful. We are going to ask questions later, but for now, thank you very much for your information. I must say that I sense some contradiction from what PPA was saying and some of the information that's coming out now about reported incidences of all of these things, but we'll have to get into those issues when we ask the questions. But in my mind now, I'm beginning to ask myself a lot of questions about a lot of things, but we'll come to that. Thank you very much for now. Maybe I think let's take the department so that when we discuss, we just ask questions. We don't wait for any further presentation. I'm sure you are not going to take long.
No, it won't be long. Thanks.
Okay, DG.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. I think you have a pack that I will just refer you, and then there will be a short presentation done by Radia. Chairperson, the minister wrote to you when you asked us to appear here, and in fact, I just wanted to report that after the media statement that was released by the committee last year, the minister called me because I was in the rural areas to alert me that he's receiving inquiries about the incident that took place in Clifton, and asked us to respond. So in trying to reach the DDG, who was also on holiday somewhere, we then realized that we did not have enough information to advise the minister. On the 28th, the minister then released her statement on the matter, just outlining what the Act provides for in terms of the Integrated Coastal Management Act in respect of access to beaches. And on the 29th, she then also agreed that I requested that I should rather write a letter to the city of Cape Town so that the city could then provide us with information in terms of what has happened. And then basically from there, we would then work through the intergovernmental relations processes to deal proactively with preventing such situations from taking place in future. So the letter is included here, and I subsequently received a response from the acting city manager, and my team, the DDG and acting chief director Radia, met briefly with the city colleagues last week, and we've agreed with the province that we would then have a follow-up meeting before we then present our report to the ministers and the MEC, in fact, before MINMEC possibly, so that we are able to either work with the city to deal with these matters more proactively. So that is where we are, Chairperson, and therefore the presentation would cover broadly what the legislation says and some of the areas that were being prioritized around creating the awareness around in respect of coastal access, what should be put in place by the different municipalities. Unfortunately, the city of Cape Town, the area that had this challenge, was not part of those priority areas at the time when we were working on a joint plan with provinces. So I think at this point in time, we'll just share with you then where we are. Thanks. Over to you, Radia.
Radia?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, DG. It's clear that what we have to add to this is to say what the legal framework is around access without us having to get into any of the factual disputes that are before you at the moment. The key legislation that governs the whole issue of access has been mentioned in several presentations. It's the National Environmental Management Integrated Coastal Management Act. We call it the ICM Act for short. The principles for coastal management sorry.
Where's Boisa?
There we go.
Oh, you're operating,
Yes.
okay.
I'm remotely operating, thank you.
Oh, okay.
So we have the principles of coastal management which come out of the Act, which is born from the constitutional right to environmental protection for present and future generations. The beach and the coast is a national asset. The coast must be retained as a national asset with public rights of access to benefit from the many opportunities provided by coastal resources. One of those is to ensure that the public has the right of physical access to the sea, not only to the sea but along the coast as well, so you can't block off access going to the sea or along the beach. And this must be managed ongoing, and it also is a way to provide access to opportunities and to manage this in an equitable and reasonable way. One of the the cornerstones of the Constitution is the right to have the environment, including the coastal environment, protected for the benefit of present and future generations. The ICM Act, the Integrated Coastal Management of the Coastal Zone, is there to ensure the sustainable protection and utilization of resources along there. It's described in Section 7 of the Act, which talks to coastal public property. That was described, it's a term described in the Act, which includes the sea, the beach, and these resources which in fact belong to the public and are held in trust by the state. There are various responsibilities allocated to different organs of state in the Act. But before we get there, the right of reasonable access is captured in Section 13 of the ICM Act, and it says that natural persons have the right of reasonable access to coastal public property. We're not going to go into the details of all of that, but we can if the committee so requires. We've got that's where the principle of access is established. We've got certain responsibilities allocated to municipalities. Section 18 and 19 requires municipalities to designate coastal access land in areas where access is limited or restricted due to attitudes or due to construction that happened in the past. Section 20 also goes further in terms of the responsibility for municipalities regarding coastal access land. There is also an offence in the Act in Section 79, which gives a criminal sanction if access is unlawfully prevented to coastal public property. These pictures give you an example of the reality on the ground. We have different kinds of historical prevention, which you still see today. You'll get signage, the likes of these kinds of restrictions, which have, as I've explained, become unlawful. It's our duty as the state to, in an integrated and coordinated manner, address these kinds of unlawful activities and to try along the 3,000 kilometers of coastline to address them incrementally and to prioritize. Those are the signages, just to give you an indication. The interventions that the Department of Environmental Affairs have made after the ICM Act was promulgated, we created, because it lies at municipal level, we don't necessarily see it as only the function of municipalities. We have a very coordinated approach with provinces and national, which is integrated at the MINTEC, which is the integrated government forums. We have a custodianship role, and we approach this together. We've created a national coastal access guideline for designation of coastal access land. We've developed the national strategy for coastal access to assist provinces and municipalities to strategically prioritize coastal access land. We've facilitated awareness campaigns in all the coastal provinces to make communities aware of their rights to access coastal public property. We're still in the process of intensifying that campaign. We facilitated training workshops to educate and capacitate government officials, including councillors, induction programs with the support of SALGA, the local government association, and we've prioritized a number of pilot sites in each coastal province as test cases for implementation. This slide gives you an aim of the national guidance strategy. It's really just a support tool and mechanism to assist municipalities on step-by-step practical approaches for designation of coastal access. Includes the requirements guiding coastal access in the ICM context, site identifications, data collection, decision management tools. The access strategy is to assist both provinces and municipalities to have a 5-year strategic plan to facilitate coastal access. The awareness raising has been an extremely important component of this and has been rolled out as follows. Part of it has been reactive. There's many incidents that have related to prevention of access to certain beaches having been reported in the media. Believe it or not, this is not the first such incident. There's been public outcries in the Western Cape. There was Saldanha Bay municipality issued in the 2016 what was perceived as apartheid-style passport requirements for people to access the beach. We had to deal with, it was during the festive season, and that was exacerbated by the Penny Sparrow Facebook, social media, racist comments. So we've had this kind of thing to deal with in the past. So we've been acutely aware of these kinds of issues emerging and us having to deal with it in a holistic manner, bearing in mind that the Act regulates all of this. In 2017, there was an awareness campaign conducted in all 4 coastal provinces with the theme, Our Coasts, Our Public Assets, Keep It Clean and Safe. The 2018 festive season awareness campaign was also scheduled for 4 provinces from December to January 2019 with the theme, Know Your Rights to Coastal Access and Clean Environment. In last year, 2 provinces were done. We've still got schedules for, and that was KZN and the Eastern Cape. Northern Cape requested a postponement to January, and the Western Cape was also prioritized for January. Seems that events overtook us with that. We also had international departmental events such as the World Oceans Day, Coastal Cleanup and Marine Week, capacity members of the community and school children. We annually have this kind of awareness going. ICM education and training further included in local government support programs. In 2017, the Councillor's Induction Program, where access was at the heart of the discussions, was also part of that. There was a guideline with roles and responsibilities in terms of the ICM Act that was developed to further assist both province and municipalities on the issues which have been delegated or assigned to them. We're actually in the process of reviewing that and making it a bit more accessible. Then we have the priority pilot sites that we spoke about earlier. In the Eastern Cape, we had Yeserafir, where there was really quite a severe denial based on infrastructure, and there were some of the speakers earlier mentioning spatial apartheid patterns. We're faced with some of those. We are trying to deal with them, and they're not easy because you are dealing with private property rights versus the right of citizens to access. So we're actually managing to facilitate there, and we're where there's a small stretch of 1 kilometer beach, and members of the community, neighboring community, can't access there except through a gated boom, which they're not allowed through. And the nearest swimming beach, because of the cliffy area around it, is probably 80 kilometers. So that was one of the first projects we embarked on. We've made substantial progress there. And we had other similar projects in KZN, Mtunzini, that's an ongoing project. Northern Cape, also an ongoing project. And Ballots Bay, where in fact that was quite a good success story, where the project is completed and a voluntary servitude was facilitated. So these are, it's not an easy issue to deal with because it's very emotive for everybody, but there are concerted joint efforts ongoing with all 3 spheres of government in order for us to facilitate access wherever possible. The Clifton Beach incident, you will see we have one slide on, sorry, and the DG has laid out the extent of our involvement in it. So pretty much for the first time, we're not in the hot seat having to explain what happened there, as the chairperson mentioned earlier. But our involvement has been as explained. There were various media reports to which the minister reacted. There's a need to establish the facts and accurate sequence of events as emerged from the talks that happened here. There are conflicting factual accounts of what happened, and that would need to be properly investigated. The DG mentions the letter that was sent to the municipality, and as well as the response from the municipality. We've heard from the municipality as well. And of course, based on the outcome of the fact-finding investigation, which, as you can see, is not as easily said as done as said, we would have to take appropriate action. It would be irresponsible for anyone to make any rash decisions at this point. We are definitely embarking on a proactive strategy with the other spheres of government, including the law enforcement officials, to see whether there's any need from our side as environment to take on issues that emerge from here. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Radia. Thank you very much, DG. Of course, yours was always an expectation that is going to be a brief presentation. We wanted to get the facts from those who were directly involved in the issue, but thank you very much for sketching the picture about the legislation that guides access that we are using in terms of access to the coastal areas and so forth. Now looks like food is ready. We are gonna break, and from when we come back from lunch break, we are then going to get into discussions, into questions. But I just want to address a situation that happened earlier on when a lady from the delegation of Cape Town had to be asked to leave. And I think in that way I'll also be addressing the comments by the MMC that there was a confusion. Now I just want to refer to rules that governs our conduct here in Parliament. Rule 188 that talks to removal of persons, which are part of the rules of the National Assembly, the 9th edition. This is the rule that was used to ask the member to leave the room. And I want to read the rule. It says that when instructed by the chairperson of a committee or subcommittee, the sergeant at arms must remove or arrange for the removal of any person who, A, without permission, is present in that part of a committee room designated for members of the committee or subcommittee, B, disrupt the proceedings of the committee or subcommittee or causes a nuisance, C, does not leave when ordered to leave under Rule 186 or 187 of the rules of the Assembly. Now, this is the rule that I used, honorable members, to ask that lady to leave, because that lady was being unruly, was in my view causing nuisance, and therefore was in violation of the rules. Why am I saying that? Ever since the delegation arrived there, that lady kept on speaking when other people were speaking or saying something that she does not like. I think it became worse when the member of the public, let me just get your name correct, Shyam, when she was making a presentation here, it became worse, and I had to ask that lady to be in order, because she kept on whispering to the colleagues in a loud way. I could hear what she was saying when sitting from here, what she was saying to the colleagues. Every time that Shyam was saying something that she doesn't like, she would protest, particularly on the lantern issue, that Shyam was saying that she was teaching her children how to use the lantern. She was commenting on that. I could hear from where I was sitting that she was saying that it's not even safe to use the lantern at the beach at night. And I had to ask her to please be in order, because it is not allowed that when members of the public are invited to Parliament, they become unruly, they become disrespectful. In fact, what she was doing, she was trying to bully Shyam while she was making a presentation, showing very clearly through the gestures, through everything, that she does not agree with what is being said. all of us in this room have got views about what is being presented here in this committee. But we don't react like that. Members have got views, they disagree, they may not agree, they agree or disagree, but they take notes. At an appropriate time, everybody will be given a chance. But what she was doing was not in line with the rules. It's a conduct that I said before, I find it very despicable. In fact, I think she was expressing some kind of a complex, superiority complex here. White superiority complex. We are dealing with a matter which is very emotive here, and we have a person who's the advisor of the mayor, a person occupying a very senior position in the municipality who must be very express empathy to the sufferings that people are expressing here. And you find a person behaving like that here in Parliament. Now, this is not some kind of a shebeen. We are not going to allow that conduct. That's why I had to ask her to leave, because she became very defiant when I was asking her that please behave when you are here in Parliament, when you have been asked to be part of the committee. Very argumentative, engaging in a dialogue with the chairperson. So I had to ask her to leave using that rule that I've just referred to here. So Honorable Steenkamp was asking why, what rule? So I've just referred to the rule. So it's a ruling of the chairperson which is not subject to discussion. If anybody is unhappy with that ruling, there are procedures to follow in terms of challenging that ruling. But it's a ruling that I've made as the chairperson of this committee, which I stand by it. I've explained to everybody why that lady was moved out. So we are going to adjourn now to go for lunch. It's now 1:10. We are going to take, say, 40 minutes because of the number here. And we will be back at 10 to 2. Then we'll continue with the questions and other stuff. If there is anything that relates to my ruling, as I said, there are procedures to follow. So the meeting is adjourned. We'll be back at 10 to 2.